Welcome to the CoCoRaHS Spring Training Session. My name is Alec Butner, and I'm a meteorologist here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield. I serve as the CoCoRaHS Regional Coordinator for much of Eastern Virginia, as well as the lower Maryland Eastern Shore and portions of Northeast North Carolina. This is going to be the spring CoCoRaHS training session, so many of the winter topics will not be in this presentation, but I will be recording another presentation later on with some of the winter topics in more detail. So first things first, what does CoCoRaHS stand for? Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. So let's take a look at an introduction to the program. What is CoCoRaHS? Well, simply, CoCoRaHS is a grassroots, nonprofit, community-based, high-density precipitation network made up of volunteers of all background and ages. And these individuals take daily measurements of precipitation right in their backyards. So what is the aim of this program? The aim is to provide the highest quality data for the many users of the data by utilizing low-cost measurement tools, and we'll talk about how to obtain some of these shortly. Stressing training and education, that's why everyone is here today. And utilizing an interactive website and a phone app, which we will also go over shortly in the presentation. So your CoCoRaHS reports, when you enter this information, it is immediately viewable on the CoCoRaHS website. Make sure to bookmark the CoCoRaHS.org page, as this is where you'll be signing up for your site and interacting with your station. Volunteer observations are viewable in the map form, as you can see below, and in table form also to the right. And they're available within a few minutes of your observation. And the cool thing about it is you can see observations from the entire United States as well as portions of Canada. So you can go have a quick glance as of what happened over the past 24 hours. CoCoRaHS is in all of the United States as well as portions of Canada, as I mentioned before, and portions of Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we want you to be a part of this mission and help save lives. So this goes into why was CoCoRaHS formed. Back on July 30th of 1997, significant flooding occurred at the Colorado State University campus. Many inches of rainfall fell in a very short period of time upstream of the university, which caused significant flooding on the university campus itself as those floodwaters rushed down onto the campus. Unfortunately, there were 5 deaths, 40 injuries, and millions of dollars of damage as a result of this weather incident. So how does CoCoRaHS stem from this? Well, simply, we wanted a way to be able to track this rainfall, to know what's going on upstream, to have more than just a few weather reporting stations scattered wide distances. Instead, as we mentioned before, having a volunteer network of many observations within individuals' backyards to help increase our monitoring of precipitation, to be able to have that detailed resolution of what's going on, to know when events like this are occurring upstream or occurring in very small areas, to be able to provide warnings and additional information as needed. So help be a part of this mission and potentially save lives in the process. Why the CoCoRaHS program? As I mentioned earlier, it helps to provide that real-time report of either the intense precipitation, such as the flood example before, or of hail or other significant weather events that can possibly aid in the issuing of life-saving warnings and advisories. It increases the climatological rainfall monitoring network by several 100% as well, and provides that very detailed, extremely localized rainfall pattern for either condition monitoring or for looking out for that localized heavy rainfall that could cause deadly flash flooding or river flooding. Some other reasons for CoCoRaHS: it provides additional data to the regional river forecast centers to aid in the monitoring and prediction of river flows and flooding conditions. It establishes a large database of good quality observations for local analysis and education research purposes as well. It helps to fill gaps in our National Weather Service network as well, and provides additional material for school curriculum that includes measurement and precipitation and standard observing practices into science education. So what is the main focus of CoCoRaHS? Once again, to provide that quality precipitation data and educational opportunities to help the public better understand both weather and climate. So now I'm going to go ahead here and look at an event in which CoCoRaHS was useful. This was back September 10th, 2018, and right here we're looking at the Virginia Eastern Shore. To the north, Accomack County, and to the south, Northampton County. This colorful image here is showing from the National Weather Service radar an estimate of the rainfall that was observed during this time frame. The brighter colors mean higher precipitation amounts, up to 10 inches of the white color, and it tapers down lower amounts as you go down the color scale. So zooming in on Accomack County first, the stars now are showing where we have CoCoRaHS stations that reported on this day, and it really shows you that verification of what happened. If we go into northern Accomack County, where the first star, the northernmost star, is located at, you can see 0.76 inches of rainfall. So not horribly significant, a decent rainfall. But as we keep heading south in the county, 2.54 inches, and that's located where this star is at. And then once we get down into Northampton County, as we get closer to the highest area of precipitation here, you can see that ground reporting of, once again, nearly 8 inches, 7.97, pretty close to where that highest value from the radar is seen. So it gives us that ground truth, that verification of what's happening. So who uses this CoCoRaHS data? Meteorologists here at the National Weather Service use this data for, once again, for the potentially issuing flood warnings or advisories. Climatologists and hydrologists as well, along with researchers, agriculture and citizen science program, to name a few. The White House Garden also has a CoCoRaHS station. So getting started. 3 simple steps to get started with the CoCoRaHS program. First, we want your enthusiasm to measure precipitation daily, or as often as you can, and the ability to transmit observations with the CoCoRaHS app or on the website. You need a completed application form that is available online at the main CoCoRaHS website again. And then once you sign up with this application, you'll then receive your unique station number and a station name through email. So in this case, the station number, VACS4, which stands for Virginia, Chesterfield County, and the 4th station in Chesterfield County. And then the actual physical name of this site would be identified based on the nearest city. And you can also, there are some options, I believe you can change which city you would like to have this go off of as well. But in this case, the station's located 6.6 east miles of the center of Chester, Virginia. And then finally, the third thing you're going to need is a 4-inch rain gauge installed in a good place, and we'll talk about that momentarily. And these are available on the CoCoRaHS website and many other places online as well. So first thing first, I like to talk about where not to place your gauge. First, don't leave the gauge in the box that it came in. Don't place it under a gutter or anywhere water other than rainfall could potentially get to it. Under a tree, near sprinklers or irrigation devices, a steep slope or water might run into it, or where animals can potentially interfere with the gauge. Some other places we don't like to see the gauge at, near or under any structure. On the deck, this is still a bit too close to the house itself. and around anything that would artificially increase or decrease your gauge catch, such as potentially a solid fence, and we'll talk about that specifically in a moment. And once again, don't leave it in the box it came in. Many people get started with the program, get everything ordered, and just never end up reporting. It stays in their box. So back to the fence example. Here's our solid fence, and this solid fence can cause updrafting during strong winds, which may reduce the catch of the gauge. So that means that potentially if you have a strong enough wind, the precipitation may end up, due to the fence, may end up blowing over the top of the gauge and missing the gauge due to the fence, due to that obstruction there. So that's why we don't recommend placing it directly on a solid fence like shown here in this picture. Okay, so now let's talk about where to place your gauge. First, we want to make sure it's equidistant between any trees. Now for an open area, such as the example below, not many trees, not many obstructions, pretty open space of land, we want you to strive to be twice as far from obstacles as they are high, and to place your gauge about 2 feet off the ground. So that would be the, once again below this would be the open example. In a more developed area, such as to the far right here, we just want you to try to be as far from obstacles as they are high and place your gauge about 5 feet off the ground. Just do the best you can with these. You don't need to go take specific measurements, but just try to get this as close as possible. Here's some more examples of some good locations in a residential site, rural location, urban locations. All these are acceptable places you could place your gauge, but few people have the ideal location. So just try to do your best. If you need help, you can always send me an email as well, and I can try to help you find a good spot as well if you're not finding something in your own yard. Also want to talk about making sure your gauge is level, and to make sure to bevel as well. And we'll talk about what that means here momentarily. Beveling, this helps to reduce precipitation from splashing into the gauge, such as the example on the left here. Many individuals will attach their gauge to a fence post or something similar as seen below. Beveling just means to make sure that you sand down or make this triangle shape here, just so it's not a flat surface on top here. And the reason we ask for that is so any liquid rain could run off the side and not potentially bounce off the top of the fence post into the gauge artificially, especially with a very heavy rainfall, or if this fence post was closer to the top of the rain gauge. And also make sure that your gauge is level. This just helps to make sure that the precipitation falling from the sky makes it into the gauge. Okay, now let's get into reading the gauge. First thing, we want to make sure to read your gauge at eye level. 7 a.m. is the preferred time. However, any time between 4:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. will show up on the main map as we talked about earlier. Other times are acceptable as well, but those will not show up on that main map. That only takes the reports once again from 4:30 to 9:30. Obviously, everybody has busy schedules and differing schedules, so just pick the time that can work best for you. Consistency is the key though, so try to find a time that works best with your daily routine, and preferably if it's between 4:30 and 9:30 a.m. that would be the preferred time window if you could. Otherwise, any other time that you think you can consistently check your gauge each day, whether that be after work at 5 or 6 p.m. or something of that nature, or in the evening, just try to find a time that you can always stick to. So now let's talk about reading your gauge. Let's talk about decimals. Be careful when recording your measurement. We want to make sure that we're getting the correct measurement. So getting the decimal point correct is essential. There's a very large difference between what we have here, 0.40 inches to 4 inches, a very large difference. So always make sure to get the correct decimal point. Double check make sure you're just entering the right information. Another word of advice, make sure to do not round up when you're making your measurements. It's very important to record as accurately to the nearest hundredth of an inch, so please do not round up to the nearest tenth. So an example, if you measured 0.98 inches, please do not record this amount as 1 inch. Please record it as 0.98. We don't want you rounding up. So let's talk about reading your gauge. What about 0 inches? This will be your most common observation, 0.00 or nothing in the gauge at all. It is just as important though to know where it did not rain as where it did rain, so make sure you're reporting all zeros. So now let's talk about some other amounts you may encounter. The first amount here, there's just a couple drops in the gauge, but not enough to measure. You knew that there was maybe some drizzle or very light rain that day, so in this case, not enough to measure. You would put down a T, which stands for trace, which once again means not enough to measure. Now say you just had a very light rain shower that day. Just a little bit in the gauge. In this case, we would put 0.04. What about if the rainfall is halfway up the gauge? In this case, 0.50, half an inch. What about if it's all the way to the top of that inner cylinder of the gauge? That holds 1 inch. So you'd put 1.00 for 1 inch. Now the big question that everybody's probably thinking, what about if we have over an inch? What do we do in that situation? Because that's pretty common. Well, for over an inch, when more than an inch of rain falls, the precipitation from the inner cylinder will overflow into that outer larger cylinder. And the total capacity of this entire cylinder, inner and outer, is about 11 inches. So first things first, we want you to pour out that first inch from the inner tube. But remember that you did so. So remember that you poured out 1 inch from the inner, smaller cylinder. Now we want you to pour that remaining water that's in that funnel through the funnel into that smaller inner cylinder and measure using the inner tube like you would normally. And you want to continue this until all the precipitation has been measured. So make sure to keep track of all of your amounts along the way. And once you're done, add up all of your measurements. So for this example, the first time you had your initial 1 inch, you poured that out, you made note of it. You went back to measure again, you had another inch. You made note of that. And finally, you went back the third time and you came up with 0.88 inches. So you'd add up all these totals together, and your total rainfall for the past 24 hours would be 2.88 inches. Also something you might encounter, a meniscus. The surface of the water in the gauge looks curved, so how do I know where to read it? As the water fills up the measuring tube, a curved surface is formed called a meniscus. It is formed by the surface tension of a liquid in contact with the sides of the tube as seen in the image here. We always want you to read the bottom of the meniscus when taking your daily rainfall measurements. So in this case, you would read the very bottom, not the curved sides. The bottom of this meniscus would be your measurement for the day. Also, if there's very heavy rain or snow falling, please submit a significant weather report, and you can do that on the CoCoRaHS website or in the app. And your report immediately goes to the local National Weather Service office, which would be us in this case. And that report provides us with much needed information to issue severe weather statements, such as flash flood warnings that could potentially save lives. So here's an example of the significant weather report form, and I'll show you how to find that as we get through the presentation here. And really no strict criteria as what you need of what you can enter for this. Generally just something that's unusual, very heavy rainfall, very heavy snow, something out of the ordinary, something that the weather service or other officials might want to know about. Let's talk about hail. For hail, use a standard ruler and measure the diameter of the largest hailstone. So see the example below. Hail reports are extremely important to the National Weather Service as well. And your report also helps us to either issue or verify warnings, and potentially helps to save life and property as well. And you can do this on the CoCoRaHS website as well, which is just as useful as calling it in. I guess the only little caveat there is if you're seeing very large hail, something just very out of the ordinary, feel free to give us a call as well. And don't wait until your standard reporting time. Report it in as soon as you can safely do so. So here are some common hail measurements and the corresponding items we use to measure them. And once again, we want you to report the largest stone size you find, preferably with a ruler if you can, or if you can use a quarter or penny or whatnot to measure as well. That would be another way if you don't have a ruler available. And please don't ever refer to it as marble size hail, because, well, a marble can be of many different sizes. It's not much help just saying marble size hail. And of course, hail safety as well. Like I said, these are very important reports, but no report is worth risking your safety. Never collect hailstones while it's still hailing, and always remember lightning safety as well. And use your best judgment. Your health and safety are always the #1 priority. And on the CoCoRaHS website, you can submit an online hail report as soon as possible. And once again, I'll show you how to get to this momentarily. But here is what the hail report form looks like. It gives you a place to say when did the hail occur, what time, what date, where was it taken at, and then you can give us information on the size of the hailstone, how long did it last, what was the consistency, all types of information. Did you have damage? Many things, if you can provide, it would be great. And your report immediately goes to us at the National Weather Service once again. And it provides that much needed information for issuing and verifying severe weather statements. Talk a little bit about measuring snow. Snow measuring is typically more difficult and takes a little more time than rain, but those accurate and timely snow measurements are extremely important to the local National Weather Service offices, along with other agencies as well. I'll just go over some of the basics here. Once again, we'll have a more detailed winter training in the near future, but here are some of the basics about measuring snowfall. Our observers are expected to measure the liquid water content of the snow itself. So what is that melted snow amount in the gauge, and potentially from the ground as well in the form of a core sample, and the depth of the snow on the ground, both in the past 24 hours, the new snow that fell, and the existing snow that's on the ground from previous events as well. Once again, you can learn more about snow measurements by viewing the in-depth snow measuring slideshow on the main CoCoRaHS website, or by attending an online winter CoCoRaHS training class, which typically are offered late October, early November through the National Weather Service in Wakefield, or by viewing the snowfall, the winter video, which will be out shortly. All right, now we're going to shift gears here and now go into reporting observations and using the CoCoRaHS website and the app. First thing I wanted to point out here is what the main CoCoRaHS website would look like when you log into it. And I highlighted a couple areas of importance. First, the arrow below here. This is one way you can purchase your CoCoRaHS gauge through the weatheryourway.com website. If you click the link, it'll take you there where you can purchase that. These gauges are also available on Amazon and other locations. Just type in CoCoRaHS rain gauge. Typically, they run between $35 to $40. Also, the second arrow to the top of the page, this is where you can log into your own profile, your own site, and this is also where you will be entering your data on the CoCoRaHS website. And once you click this section here, My Data Entry, you'll see a form that looks just like this here on the right, where you'll enter your data, and we'll talk about this in a minute. So now zooming into this daily precipitation report, and once again, what you'll see when you initially log into the website, once you get to your section, this is where you enter your daily precipitation report. So you can find it either by clicking on the top as we showed before, or it's also in the side menu here under Enter New Reports, Daily Precipitation. You would click here where the little arrow is at. And here is where you're going to record your measurement in hundredths like we talked about earlier. And remember, don't round up. And make sure to click Submit for your measurement to count once you're finished. And the date and the time should auto-populate with your default time and the default date. If for some reason you took it at a different time, make sure to enter that. You would change that to the time you made your observation at. And then you'll go ahead and type in how much liquid, how much rainfall did you observe in the past 24 hours, whether it be an amount such as what's listed here, 0.03, nothing. We talked about 0 is important. You can enter that as well. Or if you have that trace where you have not enough to measure, but there is some moisture in the funnel, in the tube. And you can also go ahead and enter observation notes as well. So if you wanted just to talk about, in this case, this individual put down light rain early in the morning and then came to an end before 7 a.m. So just a brief description of what's going on, or if something significant was going on, you could put that there as well. And in this case, no snowfall. These will all just auto-populate as unknown when you fill out your form, and then you can go ahead and enter the appropriate amounts if you did observe that through here. Oh, I'm just going to go back. Once again, make sure to hit Submit as well, or else your observation will not count. It'll just disappear. There's a Submit button up here at the top where this arrow is at. There's also one at the bottom of the page as well. So to see your observation, if you want to see what you entered or what your neighbors potentially entered, just click on your state from the main CoCoRaHS page. So in this case, we would click on Virginia, and then a more detailed map of Virginia would pop up. And then you can click on either your county or your specific city if you're in Virginia, and you can zoom in on the county. In this case, I'm showing Chesterfield County, and it shows all the observations from a particular day. In this case, no precipitation anywhere in the area, but it shows a more zoomed in photo or picture of what's going on here. And it's also available in table form as well by clicking on the View Data from the main menu, so you can sort those by table as well. So let's talk about probably the second most common place you'll be interacting with, the multi-day precipitation report. It's just below that daily precipitation. And in this case, you'll be using this form if you're away, you're out of town on business, whatever, or just unable to measure in a particular day. This is where you can enter multiple days at one time. So basically, we just want you to put in the dates you were gone and record what you found in the gauge when you returned. And there's no need to file individual or additional daily reports. This covers that entire time frame. So in this case here, the day you left, or the day after your previous measurement, you put down as whatever day that was, and then the day you returned, when was it emptied, you put that down as well, the time that this happened, and then what was the total amount of precipitation that was in your gauge when you went to measure it over, what fell over that time frame. And again, make sure to submit the data when you are done, or else it won't count. Potentially re-entering an erroneous report if you made a mistake or you need to correct something. There's ways to do that as well. Under the entering report section, there is an edit report section, and here you can edit any of the reports you've entered as well. So if you need to go back and edit a report, like a daily report in this case, you would click that, and you'll see a table like this that shows all of your previous observations, all your previous measurements. And you can click the little pencil tool next to the appropriate date, and that will allow you to just go back in and change or edit a value if you need to do that. So the daily precipitation, the multi-day are the two probably most common you'll have to interact with, but there are other reports available as well, as we talked about earlier with the hail significant weather. I'm going to go into some more detail about some of these now. So going back to the hail report, you find it once again under this main Enter New Reports menu on the website. You would just click the hail section, As I said before, this goes directly to the National Weather Service forecaster like myself in real time. Make sure to take your report and submit when you can do so safely, and do not wait till the observation time. Wait, let us know immediately when you can safely do so what's going on with hail. As I said before, you would just enter the time that it fell, the sizes, if possible, how long did it last, and maybe some of the consistency of the hail and damage. The only required sections that you'll need are just when did it begin and what was the size, but the rest of it, if you have that information, feel free to fill that in as well. It could be helpful to us or other agencies. The significant weather report that's right below the hail section. Once again, make sure to take this when you can do so safely and do not wait until your observation time. This is for rain or snow. Once again, no really significant or specific criteria for this, but mainly just something unusual. If you're seeing very heavy rainfall, you're seeing flooding in places you've never seen before, and you would like to give us a rainfall measurement, this would be the place to do so. Or if incredibly, very large amounts of rainfall have fallen in a small span of time, this is where you go ahead and do that, and that's also the same with snow as well. There is the monthly zeros section as well. This is where you can go back and enter days of zero precipitation if you would like on a simple to use page, calendar format here. Once again, it's really recommended just to go ahead and enter 0 each day that nothing occurred. But if you know that it didn't rain a certain day, you need to go back and backfill it in. This would be one way of doing that. Condition monitoring report. You can enter how dry or how wet conditions are potentially impacting your activities. And this is submitted on a regular, could be weekly, bi-weekly, monthly basis to share info about the effects of local precipitation on the environment and society, how severely dry or wet conditions might be affecting your activities. Once again, optional, but something you can utilize and helpful if you can do this. And how it might be impacting your industry. Soil moisture, I won't go too much into this, but there are additional resources available on the main CoCoRaHS website if you would be interested in signing up for this. There's an additional fee and materials that need to be obtained, but you can find out plenty about the soil moisture monitoring program by viewing the CoCoRaHS website and by clicking the soil moisture resources page if it's something you would like to also get involved in. Frost reports. Here is a spot where you can enter information about other weather phenomena, such as certain cloud types, rainbows. Did you see frost? What type of snowflakes fell? Even thunderstorms. How many claps of thunder did you hear and at what time? Once again, these are all optional sections, but if you are interested or can provide these, they would certainly be appreciated. Just allows you to provide some even more detailed, even more specific information if you feel like doing so. So now going into some of the frequently asked questions I get about the program. One of the first questions I get pretty commonly, do I have to be home every day to participate in CoCoRaHS? And the answer is no for that. Just report when you're able, and if you're gone, you may leave your gauge outside and submit that multi-day report, as we talked about earlier, when you return. So no, you don't need to be home every single day to participate in the CoCoRaHS program. Do I report morning dew that is collected in the rain gauge? And the answer is no. Dew is not precipitation, but you may note dew in the comment section, especially if it's a very heavy dew or something of that nature that is leaving moisture in the gauge. But morning dew does not count as precipitation for CoCoRaHS measuring purposes. How long is my commitment to the CoCoRaHS program? Ideally, if you can, at least one season. But the longer you contribute, the more valuable the data becomes. So once again, ideally, if you can try it for at least one season, but the longer, the better. A very common question I get, automated weather stations. Um, I have an automated weather station with a rain gauge. Can I use that instead of the CoCoRaHS rain gauge? And the answer is no. In order to accurately compare CoCoRaHS reports, all observers must use the 4-inch CoCoRaHS rain gauge that we talked about. You're welcome to place the automated gauge beside the 4-inch gauge to compare measurements, but please only report what falls in the official gauge itself. Once again, we want to all be on the same, using the same equipment, so we're on the same playing field, and plus some of the automated stations could potentially either overestimate or underestimate precipitation amounts based on what we'd expect from the CoCoRaHS rain gauge, which could potentially skew the data and give us a lesser, not as accurate rainfall measurement. So please use the CoCoRaHS rain gauge. Don't enter reports from automated weather sites or other sensors. And as I mentioned before, there's also an app. It looks pretty similar to the website, pretty easy to use. You could just take it outside with you and measure off your phone as well. Once again, looks very similar to the website. You can be found in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store as well. Just need to look up CoCoRaHS and you'll find it. You can also scan the barcode here in the image, and that'll take you to the appropriate store as well. What about additional resources? There are a variety of resources on the CoCoRaHS homepage. There are also educational YouTube videos, the CoCoRaHS blog, messages of the day, state newsletters, but climate guide for master gardeners, and many other resources. And there's also a CoCoRaHS Facebook and Twitter page, as well as a CoCoRaHS Facebook group as well, where you can talk to other observers. I will say the educational YouTube videos do come in handy though, especially with some of the wintertime measurements that we don't do as often. They give you a visualization of step-by-step of what you might need to do for a particular scenario. Some other ways you can get involved outside of CoCoRaHS with our local office, the NWS SKYWARN or spotter training program that we offer. You can learn basic weather safety, learn thunderstorm structure and see them in action, and help our communities stay safe during hazardous weather. Virtual trainings are available throughout the month of May and throughout the year, and more are to be announced. And to learn more and sign up, you can visit the SKYWARN page on our website, which is listed below here. There's also the mPING app, which stands for Meteorological Phenomena Identification Near the Ground. This allows you to easily submit anonymous, real-time weather reports to the National Weather Service from any location using your mobile device. And in this, you would submit the type of precipitation, is there flooding, hail, wind damage, all types of information that we also see in real time. Just another way of entering information. And the reports are plotted on an interactive map available for anyone to view. Just look up mPING in the Apple and the Google Store. And for more information about the project or to see this map in action, just go to the mPING website, which is listed below. There's also the Citizen Weather Observer program, where you can make your personal weather station available to the National Weather Service or the rest of the world. It allows you to add your observations to our data and stream it through the internet, and your data becomes available to us, local media, and everyone else. This is the website, the Citizen Weather Observer Program website. Feel free to send me an email as well, and I can give you additional information about this program as well. So please, if you're interested, join the CoCoRaHS family today. You can sign up by using the CoCoRaHS website as soon as you can. Once again, click that Join CoCoRaHS in the left-hand menu or that icon near the top of the page that says Join CoCoRaHS, and you'll get an email response with your login information once you go ahead and fill out the appropriate information. So you're now ready to measure precipitation for the CoCoRaHS network, and thanks for being interested or being one of our volunteer observers. If you have questions, you can feel free to contact me at any time. Here is my contact information. Thanks for watching this presentation today.